This video about conducting literature reviews for publication is sponsored by the Research Committee of the Association for Business Communication. It was created to support the Research Committee's mission to enhance and promote research in business communication. My name is Kim Sydow Campbell. I am a committee member on ABC's Research Committee, and I'm here to talk about integrative literature reviews because even though they're highly cited when they are published, the manuscripts that are submitted, many journal editors would agree, don't quite hit the mark. So in this brief tutorial, I'm going to give you some tips and some information about how to create an integrative literature review that's more likely to get published. Let's go. High-quality literature reviews have three characteristics. They're systematic, integrative, and deductive. I'm going to explain each of these characteristics and provide you with brief examples in the remainder of this video. My high-quality examples will be based on a paper that's currently in press at the International Journal of Business Communication, or IJBC. It's available online. That paper is titled The Use of Humor in Employee-to-Employee Workplace Communication, a Systematic Review with Thematic Synthesis. I'll refer to it from here on out as Taylor et al. My low-quality examples were created by me as a way to compare what Taylor et al. Did well with what many authors do not. So let's start with the first characteristic of high-quality lit reviews. They're systematic. They require appropriate literature search and review methods, which are reported in a way similar to qualitative or quantitative research manuscripts. Taylor et al.'s review is systematic because it was planned. They document where they searched by listing the databases. Here you see Web of Science, Academic Search Ultimate, etc., etc. They also tell you how they searched with keywords. So they say core concepts, humor, communication, workplace. And they also used associated synonyms of each of the concepts. And they also made use of truncation to account for any spelling differences. Then they give you a list of search terms in the appendix to the manuscript. In fact, Taylor et al. Followed a standard methodology for literature reviews, which is captured in this diagram. Start with the identification of sources, followed by their screening, and finally by their eligibility for inclusion in the review. Writing about methods for integrative lit reviews in a 2019 paper, Snyder says, I'm quoting, any search limitations, for example, time period, journals or databases, keywords, etc., should be determined by the research questions rather than by convenience. End of quotation. This is quite different from most literature reviews written to support other types of projects. They do not typically include any information at all about search or review methods. Rather, these searches could be labeled as convenient. Even if researchers were systematic in their search, the omission of those details from the manuscript makes it appear that the search was convenient. The most common reason reviews are rejected for publication is that they represent a summary of research on a topic rather than a systematic and critical review that synthesizes that research in a way that moves knowledge about that topic forward. So, the second characteristic of high-quality lit reviews is that they are integrative. Note in this example how Taylor et al. Integrated different sources. The overarching integrative conclusion is that existing humor research demonstrates group differentiation. One source found that differentiation by gender. A separate source found it by nationality. A third by managerial position. In contrast, the table shown here is mostly summative. This is especially true if it's read by row. Reading by column, however, would be more integrative, but especially when insights or conclusions based on that column are discussed. More about this in just a second. Tarocco categorizes synthesis of literature into 5 types. I'm going to give you a brief description and a list of studies from that category that you can look at later. I'll provide you with the full citations in the descriptive box below this video. So first, future research agenda is a logically derived research agenda posing provocative questions or propositions that give directions for future research, obviously. One example was published in 2015 in the IEEE Transactions on Professional Communication, what I've abbreviated TPC here, the current state of component content management and integrative literature review. That was written by Andersen and Batova. The second type, taxonomy and theoretical proposal, represents a novel classification of previous research laying the foundation for new theory. This one's represented by a 2020 article in IJBC titled Employee Silence and Silence Antecedents, a theoretical classification that was by Chow and Chang. The third type, a new conceptual framework, represents new ways of thinking about a topic. Alternative models or conceptions are proposed by the author and derived directly from the critical analysis and synthesis of existing research. Lauren and Schreiber published something called An Integrative Literature Review of Project Management in Technical and Professional Communication in the journal Technical Communication, or TC, back in 2018. The fourth type, meta theory, represents the integration and synthesis of a lit review as the basis for developing a meta theory across domains. It wasn't easy to find a relevant example from business communication, but I believe Van Ruler's 2018 article does the trick. It's titled Communication Theory, an underrated pillar on which strategic communication rests. It was published in the International Journal of Strategic Communication, IJSC. The final type, meta-analysis, you may already be familiar with. A summary of a collection of comparable research studies generated through statistical analysis of the actual results from those individual studies. The idea is to arrive at a combined average effect size for the purpose of integrating findings. It's very hard to find examples of these in business communication research, but Management Communication Quarterly, or MCQ, published one titled Gender Differences and Similarities in Management Communication, a meta-analysis, way back in 1991 by Wilkins and Andersen. In all 5 types, the literature is synthesized and integrated rather than summarized. The third characteristic of high-quality literature reviews is that they're organized deductively so that the conclusion or conclusions are obvious at the beginning and throughout the manuscript. You shouldn't be recounting your own inductive thought journey. The high-quality example here from Taylor et al. Tells readers the review provides a thematic synthesis of qualitative studies, then a little about the method. Then the authors tell readers they identified 4 themes and provide a brief description of those themes. In contrast, the low-quality example describes the topic of the review and then describes some information about the studies. But the conclusion, the 4 temporal themes, those aren't described until the conclusion of the paper. Another key here in figuring out whether a manuscript has been organized deductively, you look at the high-quality example of headings from Taylor et al. The conclusion of their review of the literature is what they use to formulate the subheadings for the results section of the manuscript. These are the 4 temporal themes they identified by reviewing existing research. The low-quality example describes the general topic of the review and then summarizes information about all of the previous research. I've used the column headings from the table of all studies here. The conclusion, the 4 temporal themes, are not described again until the discussion area of the paper. So at this point, I've tried to explain with a couple of examples how quality integrative lit reviews are systematic, integrative, and deductive. I've only covered those 3 characteristics. There's much more to know. I urge you, if you're interested in submitting an integrative lit review, to read Tarraco's 2016 paper in its entirety. It is based on 31 previous publications on this form of research. Snyder's 2019 paper is also informative. Those citations should appear in the description box below this video. Finally, I also recommend that potential contributors analyze integrative lit reviews published recently in IJBC, like the Taylor et al. One that I've discussed. There are other journals publishing business communication research that have published integrative lit reviews as well. References to the sources that I mentioned in the table a few slides ago are in the description below the video. On behalf of the ABC Research Committee, I want to thank you for watching this tutorial. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you have feedback or questions, feel free to add those in the comments below. You can also contact me directly at kim.campbell@unt.edu. I really hope to read your integrative literature reviews in an ABC journal soon. Good luck.